The college football playoff is set, yet for much of the college football world, that will be of secondary concern this week. Why? Well, the transfer portal, of course. With its Monday opening, thousands of college athletes will submit their names hoping to find greener grasses and perhaps greener pocketbooks. Our NFL draft-heavy podcast takes a step back this week to talk with Director of Player Personnel at James Madison, Nathan Applebaum, about the portal, recruiting at the G5 level, not getting lost in the sauce, and so much more here on Scouting the League. Everyone, and welcome to Scouting the League. Everyone that is complaining about the top 12 in college football need to relax. There is no scenario in which everyone is happy. And while I had a minor disagreement or two, I can understand why the committee did what they did. So do as a scout would do. Step back, answer the questions you have from all sides, and unless you are blinded by allegiance or perhaps just ignorance, I believe you will understand as well. Again, no right, no wrong, but again, just the reality of the situation we were in. Had a great discussion on college football today, recruiting, and of course the transfer portal. But first, scouts. Help me build a scouting community, a passion project that I am now working on to provide the support to the scouting community that, in my opinion, is so desperately needed. Items like salary comparison, contract evaluation, scouting development, mentorship, networking, all of it can and will be a part of what we can do together, but I need your help. Hit me up on X, hit me via text, or head over to my website. Let me know what pieces you would find the most valuable for your life and your journey as a scout. You can find me on X at RightStepADV. My website, rsafootball.com, is where you can send me a message from, or ask a scout on your staff if they have my number. Chances are somebody does. Spread the word. Let's get scouts on the same page. Let's get scouts the same support that it seems like everyone else in the football world seems to have. That is going to be the scouting community that we are working to set up together. And when you're done with that, head over, like, subscribe, and share this podcast wherever you are listening, or perhaps watching on YouTube as well. Give us 5 stars. Most importantly, share this with a friend. From Jordan Reed and Seth Walder of ESPN to Dane Brugler of The Athletic, former scouts, GMs, cap guys, everyone in between. Neil and I strive to bring you all the content that you want. And that guy that is joining me, as always, Neil Stratton, the man behind Inside the League. He is at Inside the League on Twitter. InsideTheLeague.com is his website. I am Rodrik David, former scout and now consultant, thanks to that joke that was the COVID vaccine. I am at RightStepADV on X, and my website is rsafootball.com. And today's guest, Nathan Applebaum. Just about to get to the 1-year mark with James Madison as the Director of Player Personnel, a Fresno State Bulldog and Michigan State Spartan prior to that, after completing his degree in his home state of Florida. A guy that has seen the portal, experienced recruiting, and has now helped build a roster that is going to go to a bowl game here soon. Nate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's fun to get you on. Again, for everybody out there listening, we are recording this Sunday night. Kind of a big deal starting tomorrow on Monday. We wanted to have you on. It is a good time. We talked NFL. We've talked a lot of NFL with Jordan Reed, Dane Brugler. Again, college football is, the feeder. And James Madison, where you have been, is they've had plenty of NFL guys, and all of a sudden now we're seeing a bunch of these guys at Indiana. You see James Madison guys all over big-time P5 college football. You turn on a college football playoff. Again, there's going to be somebody that probably played at JMU the last couple of years. But let's start with that big day tomorrow, the transfer portal opening up. Obviously, that has changed college football. It has changed roster building. Before we get into that, let's start with your origin story. How did you get to James Madison? How did your journey in football lead you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm originally from South Florida, Delray, Boca, Deerfield Beach area. Kind of a beach kid growing up. Grew up my whole life, huge Gators fan. That's what you always dream of. You see Tim Tebow, and all those amazing players. Growing up, it's what it's everything you want. Beating Oklahoma in the national championship. That's the story. So grew up bleeding orange and blue. Watched the Gators my whole life. Was a Dolphins fan. But I was a baseball kid. I played baseball my whole life. But had the fortunate time to go to the University of Florida out of high school, and I went there. And my first day on campus, I knew I wanted to work in football. I was just done with baseball. It just wasn't my thing. A little bit too slow of a sport. Always loved football, and got my foot in the recruiting personnel department there. Worked there 3 years doing whatever was needed. You bleed orange and blue and you're willing to do whatever, helping out game days, cutting up tape, making profiles for the database, evaluating guys, working with our scouts. We had 8 assistant directors at the time, so it was awesome to learn behind them, and just did everything. And then I actually graduated from Florida in 3 years. I lived in Florida for about 21 years my whole life. So I was kind of ready to get out. And I went to Michigan State, went there unpaid, just bet on myself. I was like, I needed something different, just went up to Michigan, and, I was blessed to work with some great people there. And they gave me the opportunity, for about, half the season, and worked my butt off, and they finally had a paid spot for me, and that opened up some things. And then, had a great year and a half learning under our director there, and amazing people. Then, I'm a big traveling guy, kind of start exploring the world. You get the summer breaks, you go out in July and you start traveling the world a little bit. I was pretty young and naive, went out to California, met some really great people from UCLA, USC, Fresno, those spots, and made some really great connections out there. And fortunate enough, Fresno had an opening literally a couple weeks later, for an assistant director position. And I was like, shoot, I've only been out to California once in my life, but I loved it. And, I was willing to take the chance and go out there, do something different. And, you always hear great things about the Fresno State program, and just the culture they built and the winning tradition. So I took the chance from Michigan State, drove all the way, took 4 days to Fresno, and I was there for a year and a half. And amazing program, amazing people, under Jeff Tedford, just such a great program builder, and a great guy, such a eye and vision for what he wants. He was phenomenal. And then the James Madison job opened up. I had some connections to Coach Chesney out here, one of my close mentors. And, obviously the trajectory of the program, and the way things have gone, and it being on the East Coast, is super attractive to me to get my foot in the door and get a first head gig as director of player personnel here, which was awesome. I'm pretty young still, so it was, it was a blessing, and it's a great learning experience too. We're at an awesome program where, people want to see you win, and the expectations are super high. So I put all my energy, all my time into the program all day long, and it's been a ton of fun.
Nate, when you were at Florida, was that McElwain? Was that Mullen? Who was that?
That was Mullen.
Okay. What's it like walking in first day, fresh intern, SEC football?
I'll never forget that day. It was August 20th, 2018, and I walked up those steps, and the first thing I see 2 NFL scouts, and I sit there, and I'm wearing almost the exact same thing. I'm wearing a Gators polo and khaki pants, and I'm waiting, and I'm just like, I'm a baby, I'm a freshman, and you see 2 NFL scouts, you're like, oh my God, this is what I live for. And then the director comes out, Chuck Canner, who was at Florida State now. He's like, hey, where are you? Where are you? I was talking to some people before with the previous staff because there was a transition period, and when I applied and everything, the staff was changing. So he grabbed me and he was like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I'll do anything." So I was super green, but I had some great mentors there. Some Kirby O'Meara, who's at Wyoming, director there, Billy Homer, who's at Ohio State, John Haran, who's at Louisville, and they brought me along, and some really good dudes,
Was it? I mean, at what point did you find out? I mean, I presume you had to stay home for Thanksgiving. You probably didn't go anywhere for spring break. You're not getting paid. Was that a bitter pill to swallow?
No, because I loved it. I haven't been home for Thanksgiving, and since I started in this, I think that's like most people. But no, it was awesome. Working for my dream school, and being just so tight knit for the program, doing whatever. It was everything like I ever thought I wanted. So it was fantastic, and it was a great opportunity.
How long were the days there? What was a typical day like for you in season?
Yeah, so as a student, my days were pretty cut out because I was working. Obviously I had to take care of school, and I was working another job and whatnot. So I would usually get into the office at about 7 a.m. Had a pretty strict routine in the morning, and then I'd be there until about 2 or 3 o'clock, and then I would go study for about a couple hours, just depending on the days. And then I had another job. I worked at a sorority doing dishes. I actually did that at Michigan State as well. It was the best job. I tell anyone out there, it was the best job because you're making money, eating free food, and obviously you're working at a sorority, so there's some perks there. Um, but
We won't get into that on the
yeah,
podcast.
but it was great. It was great. Made a lot of good friends, a lot of good relationships. I wasn't in a fraternity, so I didn't have that opportunity. But you get the chance to make some money, and it was only a couple hours a day. And then after that, I'd usually go work out and head back to the facility because one of my mentors, Kirby, I'll mention him probably a couple of times. We spent a lot of late nights together, just cutting up film. I would do whatever he needed, working on special projects. I would be there into the crazy hours of the night sometimes.
I didn't hear class time in there. How many hours were you carrying typically?
So I was carrying a lot of hours. I was in about 5 to 6 classes. That's how I was able to graduate early. And I took some classes over summer just because I was like, I should just take advantage of it. I didn't, I was kind of in that starting of that era where a lot of my classes were online and virtual. So, I'd be listening or I'd have the notes printed out. And at Florida, we actually had some services, especially, in the business program, where the notes were pretty much like cut out for you and you needed to study and do XYZ and study for the exam. And that was pretty much it. So it was usually during those like that 2 to 3 hour right after work, I would just go to the library for a few hours and knock that stuff out.
And then how late would you, when you went back to the office, you talked about late nights with Kirby. How late are we talking about?
Sometimes it would be about maybe 10, 11, I would say. Not super late, but it definitely got in there when you're doing a lot of cut ups and database grinding and updating high school coaches and evaluations and stuff like that. And it definitely got late at times.
How many of the people that start out with you your first day of Florida, how many of them stuck around the whole semester?
Student intern wise, oh man, we had so many different ones. One actually went to Disney and became an Imagineer. He was brilliant. I think through that time, I would say probably two to three actually finished out with us from my time there.
Out of how many?
What was that?
Out of how many?
It was about 8.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
That's
kept
cool.
changing. Yeah, there was a good cycle. We had a couple of really dedicated guys. Carter Wilson, who's with Cincinnati now, he's their director of scouting. He's an awesome dude. He was with me from the jump, kind of showed me the ropes. And then a couple young guys too. Kyle Steinhoff, who's with Coastal Carolina, he's their assistant director of scouting. Those guys were there from the jump, really.
When you started off on this, did you say, hey, I'm going to give myself 4 years or 2 years or 10 years or whatever? I mean, Were you that directed and goal driven, or was it kind of, hey, I'm going to see how this goes?
Um, Really, I was just kind of take it day by day. I didn't really know where it was going to take me. I had long conversations with Kirby and some of my other mentors of like, hey, where do I go? Where's point A? Where's point B? What is it? What does it look like? When you're kind of just in that recruiting intern mold, you don't really know what that next step is because
Right.
there's just a lot out there, and especially the way when I started, it was still developing. At Florida, we had 8 assistant directors, and they were all called assistant director of player personnel. There wasn't really, hey, you're a recruiting analyst. Hey, you're a director of scouting. Hey, you're this, this, this. It was all under one roof. Yeah, they had a bunch of different jobs, but there wasn't any like real mold. Nowadays you're starting to see, okay, recruiting interns, they start off in college, and then you'll probably go somewhere unpaid for a year, and then you'll become an analyst, and then you'll become an assistant director, and then you'll become a director of scouting, or there's starting to be a chain a little bit. But I guess like when I first got into it, it was just a clump of everyone's an assistant director kind of, and that's what it was. So I didn't really have like, oh, I'll be this in 5 years or 10 years. Like it's kind of more day by day thing.
Is your goal at this point to be in the NFL, Nate, or is your goal at this point to be like a P4 DPP? I mean, the money, quite frankly, is better on the college side, but a lot of people, they can't resist the urge, the flavor of the NFL. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the NFL is something I've always wanted to try out for sure. Obviously, I mean, there's so many brilliant people, and one of my strongest mentors, James Kirkland, he was an NFL scout for 20 years. And he's always like Nate, like, got to get you to the league, got to get you to the league. But a piece of
Fourth guy in the league guest, I will add, Nate.
Yeah.
Kirk, Rodrik and I both love Kirk. Greatest
Yep.
guy.
He is awesome. So I mean, but a piece of me, still loves college ball, just the fun of identification and evaluation, and just finding those diamonds in the rough. Really, it's different. And plus, like I was saying earlier, I had a bunch of the interns over at my house, and just being around them, they're so young and energetic, and they give their all to James Madison every single day. I've got a great group of 14 guys right now that come in, and they're unpaid. And I was like, I appreciate you guys so much, and and they grind, they work, and they love it, and I make it fun for them too, which is awesome to see. It's not like your ordinary department. I try and make it as fun as possible for them because I know how hard they work. I know how much they love the program.
Nate, 14 sounds like a pretty high number for a G5 program.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. So we have. Obviously, I'm the director of player personnel, and we have our director of on campus, and she has 8 girls. So we have 8 girls, 14 guys. We have 2 post grads who are phenomenal. They came here and just after school, and they're like, hey, I want this one, I want to do. Got a handful of seniors, juniors, and freshmen, and I think it speaks to James Madison as a whole, like. People love this program. People come here and it just, I mean, it's a phenomenal place. You want to send your kids here. It's that kind of place. Like, hey, when, you visit it, you go to a game, you feel the atmosphere, you want to, hey, when I grow up, I think I would send my kids to James Madison. I'll be completely honest. So you can see why people love it so much and why these kids are so passionate about it. And I'm always interviewing. I'm always looking for more help because I see almost an extension of myself in the cats that work for me, really, because they just put in the hours and they do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So before we got started, Rodrik and I were talking to you. You arrived on campus in February, I believe.
Yep.
You've replaced 97% of the production from last year. Well, I guess the year before this year, obviously. That had to be incredibly intimidating to be getting in that late with that kind of a job in front of you. Was that pretty daunting?
Yeah, it when they told me that, I was really excited because I was like, this is going to be a challenge. It's the first ever director gig and big challenge. But I was super excited to hit the ground running. I think I spent my first week there. I didn't go to sleep until like 2 a.m, just just building out the database. I didn't even have an office or anything yet. I was in another office working on some computer on the ground. I was, just getting my ducks in a row. And it was fun, just trying to figure out the real roster and everything. In spring, it was like, okay, this is what we have. These are the body types. This is the speed on these guys. This is the production, which there wasn't much at the time. It was like, okay, these guys have 10 plays on PFF. We really don't know much, and that's what we're going to go off of. So it was a lot of, watching some of their high school tape, watching the PFF, going off some of the speed metrics and trying to piece it together as best as possible. And then we hit the ground running in the spring. We built out a really good system for the transfer portal, what we were looking for. And obviously we were just like, hey, we need the best football players at this point, guys who are going to help us win games. Obviously you'd like a guy who's, a perfect 6'3", 280-pound D tackle. But, we got a great one in Chris Fitzgerald, who's on the more obscure size, and he's a great player for us, and then we took some risks with a corner, Jordan Taylor from Tusculum, a 10-3 100-meter guy. I was like, at that point, I was like, we don't have anything to lose. I was like, hey, let's just take this kid. He can run. That's worst case scenario. He's a 21-1 and a 10-3. And he's been awesome for us. Great kid, great personality, great family. And he can run like the wind. Then we got some other guys. So we were betting on experience and production, really. So like Chris Sheeran from UConn, played a ton of football, super smart, super instinctive, great guy. And he's been around a lot of football. And then, a couple other dudes, Ray Williams, Breon Penny, just guys who've seen a lot, done a lot. And that's kind of what we were missing, just veteran guys who can help, build the foundation, really.
Nate, so I know when I talk to DPPs on the P4 level, they talk about going into the portal. They've got a fully built draft board, almost like what you see with the NFL. Players ranked, colors on them sometimes, numbers, all those kind of things. Have you been able to do that? Is that your desire to do that at JMU since you've gotten there?
Yeah.
As we enter the December portal?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a desire there. It is tougher, with just the amount of we still had like interns developing and getting them acclimated to, even identifying and scouting, what does a player look like? So it definitely, there's some development there. Ideally that would be the end goal. I think that we're a little bit away from that. But I think we do a phenomenal job of just the entire transfer portal. You're going to have those draft boards at times, and I think a lot of that's great on the P4 aspect, but sometimes other schools have the exact same draft board, and at the end of the day, it's not really going to matter, and the big fish is gonna they're gonna eat at the end of the day. But for us, really, it's doing a really, really good job of being thorough. I pride our staff, and we need to know every single player in the transfer portal. We don't need to watch everyone, but I guarantee you when we open up the service that we use for the portal, we're clicking on every single name. If he has XYZ, height, weight, speed, production, that's the kind of guy we're going after. That's the kind of guy we're targeting. And that's a philosophy that I take a lot of pride in, and Coach Chesney does too. And I think that's what will make us successful, not only now, but in the long term as well.
So, Nate, the portal opens tomorrow morning, correct? What time are you going to be in the office tomorrow morning?
I'm going to be in at 7 a.m. I have a routine in the morning. I don't need to get there at 6 a.m. and I'll be there probably till 8 or 9, get a workout in later. But I'm a big, hey, I've got a morning routine. I like to stick to it. And then I'll be in at 7. It doesn't, guys will start trickling in at 9 or 10, but making sure we're all buttoned up, we should be pretty good. I got a couple guys coming in at 7 a.m. too, so we'll be grinding then. I'm always cookie cutter with the way I do things in the morning, so I like to stick to it usually.
So you start tomorrow, you kick off tomorrow, and again, the first day, a lot of movement. You'll see a lot of stuff. Again, you talked about those big fish eating tomorrow. What does it look like? Is this going to be in your mind a 1 week process, 2 weeks? Is it going to go for, again, is it 30 days that the portal is open now? Is it going to be, hey, a 30-day grind until this is done? Kind of how were you guys viewing it, and how are you guys going to attack it?
Yeah, so the actual portal is open till the 28th, but it's been open, for grad transfers, schools who've let go of their coaches, and D2, D3 guys. But we're, like I said, we pride ourselves on knowing every single player in the portal. So it's really nonstop for us. Even during the season, we were checking the portal, and you'll see some guys trickle in here and there, grad transfers and stuff like that. So it really doesn't end. It's just super intense for these 20, 30 days, where it's like, oh man, you have all these grad transfers, all XYZ going in. But I think our philosophy is, I think the way I thought about it the other night, it was the transfer portal is almost the exact same as high school recruiting. The big schools they're gonna eat early. They're gonna go after those young, the guys first in the portal. They're gonna go, fight over those guys, the big 4 and 5-star guys who are, sophomores out of high school. That's how I think of it. Within the first week, those are going to be the big fish, and then most of those teams will fill up by the end of the week, and then you're going to see more guys trickling in. And I think with us, we trust our process, sticking to our guns, and if some guys fall off, there's going to be others. And plus, you still have a whole nother portal as well. So just being patient with our process and sticking to the specs, and I think we go from there really.
So that's obviously.
Go ahead, Rodrik.
You're talking about bringing guys in, but there is the flip side of it where you guys are probably going to have some guys that jump into the portal as well. High production guys that maybe have already had a conversation. Those never happen, right? Again, everybody's doing everything above board. Again, are you guys prepared for that? Are you expecting surprises? Again, every roster is going to be kind of the same, where it's, again, there's certain names where guys have maybe put a social media post out there that, hey, I'm going to enter the portal when it officially opens. Do you guys feel like you're prepared for that? Or is that like, hey, we're going in, we know generally what's going to happen, but again, there's always going to be a surprise or two?
Yeah. I mean, it's college football now. I guarantee our guys are getting phone calls. I wouldn't expect that at the minimum, because we're a really good program, and I think that it's honestly kudos to us as a program that people do look
no question
and respect us, and they say, oh, these guys at James Madison do a good job. Even in the high school ranks, same thing happened to us. Late we had, I think it was a total of 5 or 6 guys flip Power 4 within the last 2 weeks. So, I think it's big kudos to us and what we do, especially in our program. And it's going to happen. It's going to naturally happen. So I think really just sticking to our guns, sticking to our specs, we'll be able to make up for it there. I believe so.
Nate, do you feel like you've got a pretty good handle on who's looking to move from your own team every year when the portal begins?
Yeah, I think definitely, we grade out the roster, obviously, and I give it to Coach Chesney, and I say, here's where we're really strong. Here's where we're weak. Here's where, we got to move on. We have those conversations. And then there's a couple guys where it's like, all right, he's definitely a P4 target, or, he's an elite P4 target. So I think a big thing, though, is I've read a bunch of articles, and you look historically, statistically, is guys coming up from G5 and FCS ranks to the Power 4s. I mean, the production takes a strong dip, and I think that's something a lot of guys really need to be careful with nowadays is, hey, I'm going to go bet on myself and go P4 and make XYZ. But, at the end of the day, you got to be really careful and know their roster too, because it might not be the best thing. I've seen it a bunch, I was looking at a guy the other day, and I was like, this guy went P4 and now he's back in the portal. So you're starting to see a couple often. We got lucky with one this past spring. Kai Mans was at Maine, really good career there from FCS, went to Colorado, didn't have as much production. Great kid, and he's been awesome for us. I think he has 8.5, 9 sacks this year. So, kids, has the traits, but, just got to be careful at those levels, especially FCS, G5, transitioning up, have to be cognizant of those guys leaking and lurking just for some depth.
So you were at Fresno State, correct?
Yep.
Spent time at Michigan State as well. You've dealt with the portal in multiple spots now, but in 2025, we're going to have the introduction of roster limits. How much is that going to affect the way you guys and teams across the country, P4, P5, Group of 5, whatever level, how much is that going to affect the way we see movement? Or until maybe this spring portal, are we going to see, hey, kind of just another portal cycle kind of as we've expected?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy. The roster cuts are going to be insane. And personally, I've thought about it. I'm like, why are they doing this? Because a lot of it is not. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I hope they don't come after me for this one. But I mean, we're just cutting walk-ons. Like 85 isn't being touched. It's really walk-ons. We're dropping down. We got to cut about 15 walk-ons, and they're not, there is some money involved in those kids, but they're paying their own way. They're working their butts off. They're not costing us really much. And the NCAA comes in and the courts decide to, hey, we're going to move off these guys. Like, I don't know where that came from. It's probably way higher than what I know, but logistically, I don't think it makes sense. These are guys on your roster who want to come in and contribute. And when I was at Fresno, we had within the last 2 years, 9 guys go from walk-on to scholarship and make an impact. And won the Mountain West, won 2 bowl games. They're going to a bowl game this year. And guys have come in from walk-on and gotten the scholarship. And there's tons of programs out there that pride themselves in that. So it's pretty unfortunate to see, because I love the walk-on process, just being able to scout those guys. And, those are the ones that the personnel department thrives off. Like, hey, you bet on this guy. And it's kind of like the undrafted free agents, and, you put so much time and effort and whatnot and getting this guy on campus and recruiting him. And, he might be under the radar, but he's got XYZ and he's super productive. And, he just has a chip on his shoulder. So, I mean, I don't know how that came about. It's going to be tough, though. I think what will start happening is there's going to be more talent trickled down to our level, though. There's going to be more talent trickled down to our level and FCS, too, because with that, we have to cut some guys. But it's, going forward, it's really a lot of walk-ons, which is unfortunate to see.
As it is right now, Nate, what percentage of the guys y'all are offering are P4s dropping down? What percentage are G5s from other schools? And what percentage are sub-FBS players that are looking to move up?
In the portal right now?
Just that y'all typically will offer or at least recruit.
Yeah, I mean, we're always trying to recruit, and I don't look at it like, hey, he's got this. It's really about like, hey, this guy fits this criteria, this criteria, this criteria, and this is what we're sticking to. Hey, at the nickel position, we want a guy who's 5'9", 175, and blah, 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 blah. But really, a lot of those guys they end up, we want them to be P4 guys. We want our whole roster to be P4 guys. So
how often does that happen? Is that realistic, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's 100% realistic. I truly believe that. Like, I guess I have kind of a chip on my shoulder because that's what I believe. But I think it's 1,000% realistic that every kid we recruit and identify should be at that level, especially if we stick to our guns and stick to our traits. And I think James Madison has shown that in the past, especially this past year at Indiana, that these guys are P4 players, like it's not, they're doing it right. And I'd like to keep that identity as well.
Was that reflective of last spring's portal though? I mean, were you bringing a lot of P4 kids in?
No, because we're kind of in that realm of we're trying to just get the best guys who fit us, and some of the specs are off, like I said, a little bit. So yeah, and yes and no. We did have some P4 guys try and come in late on a couple of our portal commits. Funny enough, but usually the specs are just they're a little off for that range in that cycle because we kind of just, hey, this guy's has had this experience. We're going after good football players right here, and this guy can help us and not hurt us in that realm. I think we'll do better. I think we'll do an even better job in this cycle, just having more time and being more oriented towards that. But I think we did a really, really good job of cleaning that up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, so a new place, James Madison, again, first full cycle, first year where, again, you've gotten to know your staff. You've gotten to know, again, what each coach wants. When I was at Ohio State with Urban, and again, another Florida Gator, he used to tell coaches, I don't ever want to hear you complain about recruits or the guys in your position room because you're recruiting them. Those are the guys you're going after. Would you say that's still the case in college football with the transfer portal and with NIL, where, again, maybe the money is decided, the NIL, hey, we're really going after these guys in the portal. Maybe, again, it's a director of player personnel. It is a personnel department, a little bit more of an NFL model where, hey, the kid, I'm buying the ingredients over here and you guys are doing the baking in here. Again, how would you say that is still meshed out? Again, you kind of said it was still in the recruiting realm. Is that the case at James Madison? Do you think that's the case in general across college football?
Yeah, I still think it's the case. I think it'll be probably a couple more years until it's fully ingrained into an NFL model, especially at those bigger schools. I think that's starting to trend that way. Here, I think we do a really good job of setting the deck. That's my whole thing is sticking with the specs, setting the deck, sticking, height, weight, speed, production, and that's what we're sticking with. We're not going to go outside that realm and, not look at anything outside of that we're basically what we're doing is setting our coaches up for success. Hey, here's a receiver who has 500 yards and runs this. This is what we're looking for. Can't really mess it up that hard. And here's a running back who same thing. So really what we do as a department, because we don't have the full-time staff just to really keep it going from a scouting and personnel aspect like some of the P4s do. But we do, our students do a great job identifying guys and sticking to those metrics. And then, myself in the portal and, hey, just kind of being a guideline, like, hey, this is what we're doing. Follow this realm and kind of just be a guide for them at the end of the day. And then Coach Chesney and I will sit down, watch tape, and he always asks me for that kind of information. He knows what wins and what doesn't win as well.
Nate, can you take us through the process from identifying a kid that you might like to offer to getting them enrolled? I mean, everyone that touches that player, developing the NIL offer, if there's going to be one, the whole 9 yards. Can you kind of take us through that process? Is it at a G5 school?
Yeah. Transfer portal or high school?
Portal.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got our service, great service coached by Numbers. They do a really good job just automating the portal for us. And each day, each morning, pretty much on the hour, you refresh it. We're looking down these lists of names. I'm clicking on every single name. We set our criteria, and we're targeting these guys. And then, we set a target on them, and then put an evaluation, get it to the coaches. We put it in our database arms, and then it's off from there. It really goes to the coaches, coordinators, and then gather academics. And then it's on, our head coach to kind of, hey, yes, we want to go on this guy, or no, we're not going on this guy. And I do, my job is really, hey, get us there and then try and guide the coaches as best as possible, to get us to that head coach point, because everyone's got to see it through. It might not be perfect at the end of the day, but if the head coach is seeing it through, even if, myself, if I need to bring up some guys, I think it's a pretty good process and pretty fluid, and it should be relatively quick if everyone executes at a high level.
If Coach Chesney gives you the go-ahead and says, yeah, let's pursue this guy, at what point do you initiate like the money conversation when it comes to NIL, what have you?
Really, I think, ideally you'd like to stay away from it as much as possible, unless, you need to. And really that's kind of up to him. Just the feel he gets from the player, especially sitting down and meeting with him, you can figure out, hey, this is our kind of guy, or maybe it's not our kind of guy. And, and we've had a bunch of guys come on campus and they weren't the right character fits. And they were asking for money. Hey, you know what? Maybe it's best you go to this other school. So just kind of being pretty strict in that regards as well. We don't have a ton of money to throw around, but making sure we're on the right guys and then we're doing it correctly is a big part of it too. And knowing, hey, this guy is this good of a player, this is how much we should value him is super important as well.
Yeah, that
Nate,
NIL. Go ahead, Neil.
Oh, bro. Well, as you've gone through this, I'm sure you're seeing more and more players that have someone who's their advisor, their representative, whatever you want to call it. Are you seeing more and more of that, are you seeing that becoming more professional, or is it still mostly the high school coach or the parent or the uncle or a lawyer in town or something like that?
Yeah, you're starting to see a lot of agents pop up, and I know every day my Twitter is blowing up with guys reaching out to me, and they're like, "Hey, I got this guy," and and high school coaches and whatnot, and even college coaches even reach out to us. But at the end of the day, I think it's great for them, but they don't know our roster. They don't know what our needs are. They don't know what James Madison needs. So there's a ton of people reaching out. It's crazy. My phone always blows up. Tomorrow I would expect to get a handful of calls from people that I don't even know how they get my number sometimes. So it definitely gets wild, but I like to stick to it, keep it simple. I don't think they don't know the roster like myself and Coach Chesney or the rest of our staff does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nate, you said again with conversations you like to stay away from the NIL conversation, the money conversation. That is becoming harder and harder to do. It is again, we saw the whole saga with Coach Gundy at Oklahoma State, where his contract is now being tied to NIL money and the way they spend it and the way they bring those guys in. Do you guys have something set up where, hey, quarterback is going to be this level of player and this money, offensive tackle, offensive guard, defensive tackle, priority positions? Again, James Madison doesn't have what Florida does to spend, but again, everything as you move down a level just becomes a little bit smaller. Is it an active conversation you guys are having that, hey, we have to get closer here, we have to have a model in place, or is it, hey, we're piecing it together as we go, as we figure out, again, revenue sharing, as we figure out where these conferences are going, and we're figure out, again, let's actually get a good landscape? Kind of where are you guys at in all that process?
Yeah, so obviously NIL it's huge, and it's changing the whole landscape of college football. You don't want to go into the conversation, hey, how much do you need? That's not what we're trying to do here. At the end of the day, like I said before, it's guys who fit our program. Those kind of guys are going to help us win football games. If you're focused on that stuff, it's probably not going to work out. But obviously we want to retain our best players, and we want to get the best players. But there's obviously a line where it comes to, hey, we're willing to shell out this much for this guy, and this is our salary cap, and it's more about retention and keeping the right guys here, and bringing the right guys in the program. And I think that should be for every program. I don't think. If you're paying guys out the wazoo, I know it's the nature of the game now, and I think it's going to become incredible in the next in the next few months and even the next year. It's already blowing up. But I think, you got to stick to the principle of it. There are guys out there that will die to play for James Madison. There are kids that I still, I connect with and I talk to, and recruits that really, really good players. And they would do incredible things to come here, and those are the guys you really want to build your program around. At the end of the day, even looking at the portal now, I mean, there's D2, D3 guys that are out there that, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay as much. And they're right down the road too. So I think that's a big thing is, identifying that talent too. And I believe obviously you're going to have to put in the money to get out the product, but it starts with the foundation, guys who want to be here, guys who want to make an impact. That's where those guys, you'll see them play a little harder, work a little harder, and they'll make an impact for your roster. And we've seen it before. A lot of our roster made up of, FCS and some D2 guys, and they've played really hard, and they've done an amazing job for us. And they've got a chip on their shoulder as well because, they came from a smaller school where they didn't have as much, and they didn't have a beautiful facility and a beautiful dining hall and all that stuff. And I think that is, the foundation and why we're successful. I can't really speak for other schools and how they go about it, but we've had obvious success this year with that kind of model.
Nate, JMU has obviously had a lot of success, just like you said. Y'all getting ready to go to a bowl game. We were talking about that before we got on here, and congratulations for that. But
thank you.
You came from an SEC school. You were at a Big Ten school. Are the lessons that you learned there applicable at a place like JMU, which, despite its success, much smaller stage, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, you learn so much at those schools. Exactly, what to do, what not to do. Kind of, how to really kind of organize it. I would say from a bigger picture. And then I think when I got to Fresno, it really opened my eyes of this is how it really, really should be done down to the nitty gritty. At Fresno, we slayed some giants. We beat Boise and, we beat Purdue and Arizona State, neck and neck with Oregon State, and fought against USC and they just put up a heck of a battle against UCLA last week and some of those big schools. And they won't back down. They're a tough, gritty team. I think really I learned a lot from just the more details of, okay, this is what matters. At some of the bigger schools, you can get a little bit lost in the sauce, as I like to say, just this guy's got this hype and you got to recruit this dude and blah, blah, blah. And at Fresno is a little different, I'll say, compared to, Michigan State and Florida, where it was, hey, we got to win and we got to beat Boise and we got to beat USC and Arizona State and Purdue and those were our goals and we accomplished some of those goals and won a bowl game out there and just sticking to that really is some of the lessons I learned there. But at the big schools, it's more big picture, like, hey, this is how it should be organized. This is how it should be run. There's kind of like stepping stones to like how to maneuver, especially with a bigger stage and some bigger recruits and whatnot. But it was so good, like combining all these experience. You go to one of the elite programs of all time at Florida and Michigan State, who's a tough, gritty program. And then you go to Fresno, which is, blue collar, tough, great group of five program. And then here, which is an up and coming, it's such a great blend of programs. And I mean, I could take so many lessons. I could go on and on for days about each one. It's almost too much to tell.
So we're sitting here, we're December. Again, we're waiting for, it seems like all the time we're waiting for new legislation or we're waiting for a new ruling to come down. Is the unknown, that future, again, what's coming next, is that the biggest challenge that you feel like you face as a DPP, or is it something else? The NIL money. Hey, we know we aren't going to be able to pay what X, Y, and Z pays out there. Is it there's just a pure shortage of players at this position? What would you say are the biggest challenges? Is you think of, again, you hopefully you're not thinking about your roster in just 1 year. It's hopefully what college football used to be. We're thinking about it in a 2, 3, 4 year plan. What are those biggest challenges you're facing?
Yeah, so that's such a great question because I think about it sometimes, and we're sitting in these meetings with our head of compliance, and he's like, "Oh, this is changing, this," and I'm like, I kind of just say, "Okay, like, cool, like, all right, cool, change everything. I'm cool with it. We're still gonna stick to who we are. The bottom line, if they want to change it to 105, which I'm pretty disappointed about. Like I said earlier, okay, do it. We're still gonna go out and build the best roster possible. You want to give P4s a $20 million salary cap? Okay, cool. We're gonna go out identify them and out evaluate them. And that's obviously the competitiveness in me and our staff and our program. But if they want to keep adjusting things and changing things and catering to whatever rules they keep coming up with, that it's I sat in a meeting the other day about the 105, and okay, it kind of is what it is. A lot of it's out of your control, and I think my mentality is really, we're just going to keep building the best roster possible. That's all you can control at the end of the day.
Nate, I don't know to what degree you have pro liaison duties there, but based on what you've seen, having been there for a whole season, would you consider it would you consider JMU a pretty scout friendly school? Would you say Coach Chesney is pretty receptive and accepting of scouts coming through? I mean, how would you judge the visit from your side in terms of scouts coming through and how y'all work with them and what have you?
Yeah, I think we do a phenomenal job with scouts. We're really open whenever they need to come in. They come in. We get all them the answers to their questions. Provide them data, metrics. We give them a booklet, roster cards, whatever they need. I'm here for them. I look at them as like a very strong acquaintance, and just another person to build a really good relationship with, and someone for our staff that we want to come. We want them to come back. This is our program. This is what we're building, and we hope that there's players for them in the future. It's not anything like it's shelled off or you got to leave at this time or this time. And Coach Chesney and myself, we're really open to, hey, when you need to come in, you need answers, you need XYZ, I'm a phone call away, and obviously don't have all the time in the world, but whenever you need something, I'm going to be the first one to pick up. So that it's always super open. Love talking to the scouts. They always have so many great stories. And plus another big thing, especially for our interns here, it's huge to get them in the door because they get so excited and they always pick their brains. And I let them, it was like, hey, it's another tool for them to just grow and develop some experiences that I might not have that they have, and they can share as well. So they're always welcome.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Nate, take off the DPP hat. Again, you're sitting at the top of the NCAA. You're, on the governing board for college football. Where do you think college football should go? Again, we talked about all this stuff, salary cap, we talk roster limits, we talk all these different changes that are coming down. We know change is going to happen. We know there's got to be some leveling, some regulation, oversight, whatever you want to call it. What should, from your perspective, take place that will, again, not make your job easier, but again, give you some known in all the unknown that's happening right now?
Yeah. That's a really good question because the transfer portal opens tomorrow, and I have definitely thought about it a couple of times because it's ever changing. But I think the biggest thing is first I would I'd put that roster number back to 120 or, that's what we were at. Because I think there's just going to be an excess of kids who don't have a home, which is unfortunate. And there's going to be talented players who don't have a home. And, I saw a lot of it when I was out in California because there's not a lot of those middle ground FCS D2s. You got like 6 or 7 schools in there. I don't know the exact number, but there's once you're there's nothing else. You're going California JUCO ball. So, and there's a ton of talented players in there, like guys who can make an impact to a ton of rosters. But I think definitely putting that number back up would be phenomenal, especially for walk-ons. And then really, I think there's got to be something done with just P4 teams, and not just P4, but like, hey, you're taking a kid and then you're cutting him the next year, and you're kind of asking him to leave and you're showing him the door, and I think it's unfortunate at times because you give a young man the opportunity to come and play college football, and it's a mistake. It's a mistake you make, and you need to be held accountable for it. It's just now it's kind of thrown out the window. It's okay. Well, we'll just we'll show him to the door, and then he's out in the portal in kind of no man's land, which is pretty unfortunate. So I'd like to see some more rules implemented from that side of, hey, you're signing these kids, you're recruiting, you have a full year to do it. You have more than a full year. You have 2 years really to do it. And, a lot of these teams make mistakes, and, it lands up being a bad thing for the kids. And I'd like to see more implementation from the NCAA on that standpoint. Just holding people accountable for sure, because that's why I got into it. I got into it for the love of the game and changing kids' lives. And sometimes it's just really unfortunate to see, a program makes a mistake on a take, and, and the next thing you know, his whole life is turned upside down. So just that part of it, that hits my heart. I hope it hits a lot of people's hearts, because that's kind of how the world is right now. And I know it's turning into a business for sure. But at the same time, I know the NFL, like, you got to hold on to your draft picks for a little while. You can't just, cut them the next day. So definitely some more accountability from that aspect. And then I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I think
I'm sure it's a long list.
It is a pretty long list, because I think about it. That's kind of where my head's at right now with the roster management and just the overall transfer portal. But I think those two things kind of strike me at this moment.
Yeah. It's one of those things. There's a lot of wrinkles in the blanket, and you've got to start somewhere. Start ironing them out. And again, why they start with 120 to 105 again. You made the walk-on example. I mean, that's a perfect one. The accountability is huge because, again, there's plenty of money out there. And again, it's kind of the salary cap question. You can always kick the can down the road. There's always a donor somewhere that is going to write a check to help a program out. But again, from that accountability standpoint, from what it does, if we want to think there is any level of student athlete, any level of young man's development as part of this program, it is not just a football meat grinder, spit them in, spit them out, and then move on. Because again, that is not good for college football. That is not what so many fans want to see. So again, I think those are great points. We will see where it all goes. Again, good directors, good GMs, good personnel people have to have a voice in all of it. Again, the big well-known coaches seem like they get a lot of input, and again, they're in a completely different world. Scouts have a place, coaches have a place, evaluators, everybody else has a place. So Nate, this has been fantastic. Last question I got to get you on: our 12-team college football playoff. If there's one thing perhaps that college football's gotten right, we've expanded to 12. If there was ever a year to expand to 12, man, last year it seemed like 5 would have been the number. This year, again, 12 seemed like a fantastic number. We got 4 teams getting buys. We've got, some people upset about Alabama getting left out. I'm a little surprised Miami and maybe some shifting around at the end. Is there a team you're rooting for? Is it a team you're picking? Obviously, got a bunch of ties there in Bloomington. Again, a bunch of former Dukes playing for the Hoosiers. Are you pulling for them? Kind of where are you at with college football? Any predictions? You want to give us a champion?
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, I think it's funny you say that too, and that's another thing going back to it because, I think the college football playoff is great. I think 12 teams might have been a little aggressive there because you look at some of the
4 to 12 is
talent.
a big jump.
Yeah, it definitely is because you look at some of these teams and you're like, I don't know about this one. But I'm pulling for Boise. I'm pulling for the underdogs. Shout out the Mountain West. So I have a ton of respect for what they do over there. I think they do a tremendous job. That's a program, especially that I have competed with in the past. And, being at James Madison, everyone kind of likes to compare us to them a little bit, just being on the East Coast. But I'm pulling for Boise pretty hard. Indiana, I would like to see them win. Kind of the underdogs would be fun. Who else we got in there? Oregon could be a fun one too.
Oregon, the top dogs.
Yeah. Dylan Gabriel, man, watching him throw the ball is awesome. I don't know if he's getting enough hype around the draft and whatnot. Some of my students have told me they're like, what do you think about Dylan Gabriel? I'm like, dude, he's a sleeper. I don't know what the draft rankings are, but the way he spins it, he's accurate. He's poised. And I love to see Oregon and Dan Lanning, just what he's been through and his story and, the energy he brings. I think he's a really, really good one in college football. I'd love to see them win it, but I would like to see Ashton GT and Boise State come through hard, and then Arizona State. I got a buddy who works there, so hoping they pull one out too.
All right, so Nate, now for the most important question that we have asked you today. All right, this is critical that you get this right. Okay, who wins the Heisman?
Who wins the Heisman or who should win the Heisman?
Keep your mouth shut. All right, Rodrik and I have had a bitter rivalry over this for the last several weeks. Who do you like? It's a 2-horse.
Who wins the Heisman? I think Travis.
Who do you think deserves? If you had a vote now, Nate, who do you vote for?
I vote for Ashton.
Winner.
On, man.
Correct answer.
I think Travis is doing phenomenal things. I think he will win the Heisman. Ashton, he's different. He's doing amazing things as well. I think he's getting a little knocked because
on his back.
He has put the team on his back. But I think he's getting knocked a little bit for the Mountain West competition, which he has dominated. He's done he's played Oregon. We'll see him in the college football playoff. I think he's getting a little knocked for that. I'd love to see him win it.
Remind me, I may have missed this. What position does he play on defense? Is he a star on defense too? Rodrik, can you fill me in on that?
No, he's not.
Maybe I've been missing that. Maybe I've missed that.
He carries the team. He got his team to the college football playoff. One player did.
Yeah.
The other one
didn't. Shot, all right, you got a shot. You blew it. All right, we're not running this episode.
I think
about it. I'm going to put it at the beginning.
Oh my God, make it the first thing.
Yeah, big rivalry between Rodrik and I all year. We'll see. We'll see what happens next Saturday.
Again, I'm with you, Nate. Both are unbelievable. Again, if there was ever, I'm never going to say tie. I'm voting for Janty. If there was ever a year to go, hey, we're splitting the Heisman. We're giving 2 guys. Again, I don't believe in ties. I'm not a soccer guy. Give it to Janty. Give Hunter runner up. Again, he's going to get it. That's a whole different thing. But again, it's a fantastic conversation. Again, what Janty's done, what Hunter's done, both historic years in terms of their numbers, in terms of what they did. Again, snaps and just pure production, game changing ability. It's you can't go wrong, Neil. You can't go wrong unless you choose Travis Hunter, which you did. So either way, Nate, before we go, again, you're going to be out there on Twitter. Again, we're going to see your name. We're going to see the Dukes pop up on the transfer portal this week when this comes out. If people want to follow you, if people want to reach out to you, again, get to know more about you. I'm sure you're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You're probably everywhere, as guys in college recruiting have to be. Where can people find you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm big on Twitter, not on TikTok. Instagram, I kind of keep a little low key. But yeah, you can reach me on Twitter. I got it pretty much up all day long. But it's at Applebaum Nathan, and then my email too. If anyone wants to connect or reached out, applebnq@jmu.edu. Feel free to shoot me an email. I try and be as responsive as possible. I do get bombarded sometimes, but I do my best. And then LinkedIn as well. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, I'll put the handle. I'll put your email in the show notes. This has been fantastic. You got Western Kentucky. What date is your bowl game?
It is the 18th, December 18th, Boca Raton, Florida.
Boca Raton, Florida, back home. Going to get the big win. I am sure the Dukes are going to have everybody, no opt-outs, everybody lined up, ready to go, right?
I hope so. I would love to pull out a win in my hometown. I've got about like 30 texts once they heard it was Boca Raton. So I got my grandma's going to come to the game, which is huge. Shout out to my grandma. I miss her cooking so much. And then, my mom, my dad, and then a whole bunch of family members and friends and whatnot. So excited for that.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Before we go, agents, hopefully those SRAs are being signed, but don't just stick them in a random folder on your computer. Once you hit save, upload, and track them on player profiles, all part of the Agent Live 360. The CRM you need to help manage every aspect of that agency, from player profiles for current clients, future clients, NIL clients, and everyone in between, team contacts, coaches, endorsement companies, invoicing, expense and revenue tracking, and our brand new contract feature. Yes, Agent Live 360 has it all. Head over to agentlive360.com to sign up for a demo. I will personally walk you through the entire software, or sign up using code TRIAL90 for a 90-day trial of the complete software at just $10 a month. That is a price that you will not beat. That is code TRIAL90. Agent Live 360, the CRM you need for your agency. Scouts, don't forget to hit me up at RightStepADV on X, or head over to rsafootball.com. After you do that, sign up for Neil's Friday Wrap. If you are not already signed up, stay tuned in the coming weeks and months of all the front office and college staff movement that nobody tracks quite like Neil. He is at Inside the League or InsideTheLeague.com. Christmas is almost here, which means we get to celebrate the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. But along with that is plenty of action in the football world. From the NFL draft to staff movement, who are the next wave of GMs, and a little bit of everything in between. Make time for your family. Make time for this podcast. Enjoy the season and keep scouting.